When we create a piece of artwork, we're creating something from nothing. Yes, we use supplies, but the essence of what we create, it didn't exist anywhere prior to creating it. When we're rendering value in an image, we're adding content, we're adding something into this world that wasn't in it prior. We're doing this to depict light and shadow in order for that light and shadow to hit the viewer's eye. We create our artwork like magic. We learn this in the studio. Welcome to my studio.
Welcome back, my artists. Today we're going to do a studio where we're going to be trying out the different kinds of methods used to create value in an image. So first we need something to shade in. I'm going to use a pen today. You can use a pencil. In fact, I would recommend that you use either that light blue colored pencil or you use your graphite pencil for what we are doing today. I made a 2" by 2" template. Just cut this out of a piece of cereal box. I'm going to create 6 squares. Really doesn't matter how you arrange these squares. The important part is that you have 6 of them. I'm going to pick a vanishing point. Does not matter where I pick that vanishing point other than it should be somewhere towards the center of the page. Start with my squares that are closest to the vanishing point. I want to make sure that as I'm doing this, I'm following my 3 rules. The pencil or pen in this case always gets pulled towards myself when I'm making a line. I always want to make sure that I'm not making any marks on top of a square or sides of an established cube. And all corners are going to go to that vanishing point. Making the sides of these, I always remember, they're going to be parallel to the actual square. Remember, height and width don't change, depth is what changes. So the angle of my height and width has to stay consistent. Blend or tinting. So you ever wonder why your sets of colored pencils or crayons come with a white crayon or white colored pencil when most of your paper is white? It's for this reason right here. To achieve your blending or your tinting, you want to be adding your white or your black in with a color. This tends to make a more washed out color, but it still does the trick as far as making something appear lighter or darker. To do this, I have saturated in or mostly saturated in my purple, and up here I'm going to only grade in my purple. I'm going to take my white and I'm going to saturate over top of my purple. Sometimes it's hard to see what you've already saturated. Sometimes you have to kind of tilt your picture or tilt your light source so that you can see the sheen where the waxes of the color pencil have smoothed out the waxes of the purple color pencil. As far as the black goes, I want to do the same kind of thing, except I want to grade very lightly. I don't want to use much black because, again, it will darken out the color. It'll wash it out. You won't get a nice blend or tint. Even though I'm using the black to tint this darker, I still want to do my purple over top. So I'm going to do my purple, but this time I'm going to saturate again over the black. Next, we're going to do the grade or gradient. You've already done this. This was on our last lesson. I'm going to take my color. I'm going to saturate in this cube. I'm going to grade the sides. Then I'm going to look for my complementary color to complement that to make 2 darker values. And there we have it, grade or gradient value. The next one I'm going to recommend using a pen. The reason why, pencils tend to smear, pens do not. So for this one I'm going to do what's called cross-hatching. At the end of the day, all value, depicting value, has to do with concentration. I concentrated more color here so it appears darker. I pressed down harder and concentrated a darker pigment here so it's more concentrated. Here it's lighter because it's less concentrated. Cross-hatching works the same way. When I hatch going one direction, it gives me one level of value. By cross-hatching or putting another row over top, it's going to darken that value. The closer those lines are woven together, the darker it is, the further apart, the lighter it is. Cross-hatching is not scribbling. You can use scribbling to depict changes in value. However, cross-hatching is very mechanical. We want to keep it as even and consistent as possible. If that means that you pull out your ruler and you make a line, slide it up, make a line, slide it up, that's fine, whatever works for you. We have the basics of cross-hatching. There's many different methods in how to apply the cross-hatching, but this is the most basic, literally just a crisscross chessboard kind of pattern. All right, our next method is the messiest method. I always make sure to have a scrap piece of paper with me that I can put my hand on top of. This is going to keep my hand from getting dirty, but also keep me from smearing the graphite, because this is going to be shading. One mistake we make with shading is we leave areas blank. A pure white is very rare, a value that is lacking any level of shadow. It does happen, like on the whites of your eyes, if you're doing a portrait, you can see there are areas that are very light in value. However, if you really look at those areas, you're going to see that there's dark areas even there. Sometimes when I'm shading, I purposely shade everything once over, very lightly. I can always erase away areas, but this makes it so I have a good foundation for all of my darker value to go over top of. When I shade, I'm doing little circles. I'm not just going back and forth. I'm doing these kind of oval shapes. I can always layer over top another layer of darkness when it comes to shading. The point of shading is to layer. Once you shade in an area, you can still go back over top of it. One thing I want to point out, though, is I see a lot of people shading this way. This is called smudging. And whereas it is a technique for using with graphite, it's not one we're doing. Smudging has a lot of benefits. Sometimes in art terms, we also call it blending, but we're not getting those benefits right now. Right now, the more important thing is to learn to build your values up with line and shading than to push it around with smudging. Smudging is what we don't want. Some smudging is going to happen no matter what. You can see right here, even the black of that colored pencil has kind of smeared, it's smudged through there. This is what we don't want in our work. We want to make sure that we're cleaning that up as best we can. Stipple is going to be another way that we can create a sense of light and dark. And again, it has to do with concentration. The closer I put dots together, the darker the value. The further I spread them apart, the lighter the value. Again, I'm going to go back to using the pen for this one. Pencil tends to smear. Pen works much better, although this is a roller ball. If you have a fountain pen, that works so much better than a roller ball will. However, stippling is probably the most time-consuming way of adding value. Your end result ends up being very smooth, and when you zoom out, it ends up being the most, I think, consistent way of making something look photorealistic. Stippling is little bits of value put together by these little dots. Again, ballpoint pen, not ideal for this. You really want to use a marker or a fountain pen for this kind of thing. And our last method of shading that we're going to do today is called concentration. Concentration is just what it sounds like. The more I put objects together, the darker the value appears to be. So if I had rubber ducks, for instance, and I put rubber ducks really close together, it's going to make a very intense yellow. But if I started spreading them out on a white surface, it's going to make a less intense yellow if I zoom away from those rubber ducks. In this case, I'm going to use different things closer or further apart for concentration. I'm going to use my pen just because I use the pen over here and I don't want to have to deal with any smearing. When you're shading or concentrating or any kind of time that you're using a technique to develop value, you want to do a couple things. One is you want to be constantly reflecting upon what it is that you're doing. You want to check areas. Does this look light enough? Does this look dark enough? You want to adjust as you go. Another thing that you want to do is you want to squint. You want to close those eyes so you're looking through your eyelashes, in between your eyelashes, and that's also going to help you to kind of see what areas are light and what areas are dark. You can also do this by backing away from your work. So if I put this down and I step 6 feet away from it and I look at it, I'm going to clearly see if this and this are different enough in value that it makes this look three-dimensional.
To recap, today you are going to be creating 6 three-dimensional shapes. They don't have to be cubes. I showed you how to make cubes, but it can be any kind of shape that you want as long as it's three-dimensional. You will fill 5 of those shapes using 5 of the methods that I just showed you on how to depict value. And last, for that final shape, you're going to experiment with your own method of creating value to fill that shape properly. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing your studios. And until next time, I'm Mr. Morris. Have a great day.